Hey everybody, I'm Tim and welcome to the Bugsy Collection. The Bugsy Collection is a place where we share stories, grow our friendships, and we also talk about our favorite thing, baseball cards. So welcome back tonight. And if you've been following me as I've started my channel since we got back from the National, you'll know that I've posted a couple of videos and my best buddy Tony over at Southern Collector, he did he's done two episodes now with me called the Bugsy Chronicles, and that's where I tell stories about when I collected with my dad back in the 80s. And we just finished the second episode. We filmed it Monday night, actually, or we recorded it, I guess should be the way I refer to it. We did that Monday night. We just had the best time. Took about an hour. And then after we finished recording, we stayed online together. And Tony and I just talked and we caught up. We talk all the time anyway, but most of it is texting these days. So we actually we're in StreamYard together and talking back and forth and just catching up and talking about families and our kids. And he's got grandkids. I've got my first grandchild coming in October, but we were just catching up. And I was telling him that I had been thinking since I got back from the National, it was sort of like, it's such a buildup to go to a show like the National that it's almost like Christmas. You know, you can't wait to get there, or it's almost like a great vacation. You can't wait to get there. You're not working, so you're not thinking about work. You've probably got a little bit of money with you that you can spend on cards, and you don't have to. You're immersed in it, and you're not really thinking about other things. And you meet some new people and you're kind of on a high, and then you get back home, and as far as your hobby and your card collecting go, it almost felt like for a few days like Christmas night. And Christmas night is, that's kind of a letdown. You might start taking the Christmas tree down on Christmas night, but all the presents have been opened. And it's like, okay, I got some really cool stuff, but now what? Christmas, or the National in this case, is a year away. So I started talking to Tony about that, and I said, yes, I made some new friends, and I've started this channel, but what I've really discovered, and I really discovered this during COVID, that when, once we were isolated, that I actually need people more than I actually thought I did. And I need those relationships. I need to be able to talk to people. I need some FaceTime. So I asked Tony for his opinion. I said, how do I keep this going? Is it because making videos, yeah, it's great, but I'm talking to a screen. I'm not having a back and forth interaction with somebody. And he gave me a couple of ideas. He added me to a couple of things that he's a part of in the card community, and that was very nice. But I think the biggest takeaway that I kind of thought of as we finished talking, it was kind of the obvious thing. It's like, it's what you tell your kids, when they're growing up and they change schools and they don't know anybody, and they say, well, I can't, how do I make friends? We got to talk to people. Well, I'm not great at talking to people. We just got to try. You got to get out of your shell. So I decided that's what I was going to do. And I had made a few new friends at the show, met a few people online, and I've got some things that I'm wanting to do with my collection, and maybe some different areas where I need some help. I need some experts with a certain type of card to help me through some things I'm trying to figure out. And I met some of those people at the show, and I thought, I'm just going to start. I'm not going to wait for people to come to me. This is silly. What are you doing? Get out of your comfort zone, look people up, comment on YouTube shows that you watch, look on Instagram, and if you see something interesting and you see that it's somebody that you knew and you think, hey, I want to reach out to them and kind of keep this conversation going, just send them a DM and see what happens. And I did that. And it's amazing that just how good the people are. So just to name a few people and kind of the journey that I've been on the last several days, I contacted Greg Miller and I asked him for his dad's mobile number. We met at the National, but I didn't have his mobile number. We talked a ton while we were in Chicago. Reached out to Coach. We've been texting. Ran across on YouTube actually on Instagram a few days ago, 5 Cent Wax, Tyler at 5 Cent Wax, and watched his first video last night and discovered that I think he's a little bit younger than I am, but discovered that our stories are very similar. I got back into collecting last summer after my dad passed away. He got back into collecting recently after his brother passed away. And so I reached out to Tyler, and we've actually been texting, told him I'd love to talk to him. He called me tonight. I was at church and couldn't pick it up, so I'm going to call him tomorrow night. We're going to talk. Been communicating some with Vintage Dan about a couple of things. He's great. Heard from Clemente Collector. Made friends with Matt from Straight Race Cards. He saw something in, I think, the last video that I posted. I said I had some sportscasters. So he did just that very thing. He's collecting, he's into track and field is one of the avenues that he collects. He's looking for some track and field sportscasters. So he shot me a text to see if I have any. Sure enough, I do. I'm sending those to him tomorrow. And so I got another friend. So that's a very long way of saying you can, it's no different than what we tell our kids. You just got to get out of your shell and communicate with folks and reach out and be the initiator. And so it was great. I feel like I'm getting making more friends in the hobby and more folks to share this journey with, which is a very good thing. So the bulk of the episode tonight is going to be about some treasure hunting that I was doing here in my own house. And by that, I mean, I think I mentioned on the last video that I cleared out all of my dad's stuff out of storage. And when I did that, I consolidated. I had been consolidating through the years. And I consolidated it now down to about 6 tubs. And while I was doing the consolidation and storage, there was some throwing away of things that I also did. But I pulled some things out. And there was a particular picture that I'm going to show later, a particular picture that really struck me that I thought was really cool that I kept, but I couldn't remember exactly where I put it because it was in a photo album, and I pulled it out and I put it in another tub and forgot about it. And then I've got those 6 tubs here, and I started thinking about it. And I thought, man, that would be pretty cool too. It's nothing very valuable, but it's pretty cool. I'll show it to you in a bit. But I had to find it. So I started digging through these bins last night at about, I don't know, it was late. The wife was in bed. The house was quiet. And while I was digging through looking for that particular photo, I ran across a few things. These aren't baseball cards. They're related to my dad. There's some cool pictures that are baseball related. So I hope I don't bore you to tears. And my channel is going to evolve into showing more cards, but I've still got a few more things that I would just really like to share with you guys about my dad, Bugsy. So the first thing that I ran across as I was going through those tubs last night, found a ton of pictures, found an envelope. And I think I showed you guys this. So this is not what I found last night, but this is a reproduction of my dad's, my dad called it his knothole team, knothole gang. I think that's what the league was called back in there was a knothole gang league back in the 30s and 40s, maybe into the 50s. And that's my dad. That's my dad right there. And we actually cut that out. Greg Miller photoshopped that out for me, and that's my logo. So that's where my logo came from. But what I actually found in my dad's stuff is the 8x10 original photo. a type 1, a Bugsy type 1, if you will. So there's Dad. And the paper is, it's these old photos. It's not like photo paper these days where it's kind of, it doesn't really feel like paper. It kind of, they kind of feel plasticky. This is paper. This almost has a cardboard feel. And if you flip it on the back, you can see at the top, it says Harold Kaler written in pencil. And I'm going to guess that my dad's mother wrote that. And then underneath it, that's my dad's writing. And he added that probably recently once he found these pictures. Spring of 1949, about 13 or 14 years old. So I'm probably going to get this framed and put this up here in the command center for the Bugsy collection. I just absolutely love this photograph. So that's one thing that I found. The next thing that I found is I ran across a letter. And so I was going through this one box, and there were quite a few envelopes in it. And I was kind of, they just looked, I don't know, they didn't look very interesting. And I'm kind of, my wife is on me to get these bins cleaned up so they're not just sitting behind the couch. So, but I'm the pack rat in the family, and but I think the things that I found last night will somewhat vindicate being a pack rat. Pack rats get a bad name, a bad rap sometimes. So anyway, I found this letter, and I got to set the stage a little bit before I show you the letter. So my dad was born in 1935, and his parents were married until his dad passed away. And my dad's father passed away, I think in 1951 when my dad was 16 years old. So my grandmother would have been, or my dad's mother was about 42, I think, when my dad's dad passed away. And a couple of years after that, she met a man who his wife had passed away. So he was single. He was about my grandmother's age, and they met and they married. And by now, I think my dad is 18. It's a couple of years later. My grandfather owned a tobacco farm in Carthage, Tennessee, east of Nashville. So they moved to the tobacco farm. My dad stayed here in Nashville. And, the draft was, you had to go into the military once you turned 18. So my dad at this point is 18 years old. He went into the Tennessee National Guard, and he was in that for, I think, 7 years. So what I ran across is a letter, and let me show it. What I ran across, I put the knife on it to kind of flatten it out so you could see it. But I ran across this letter that my dad wrote while he was in Georgia they had to go for 2 weeks out of the summer. They would have to go to Georgia for National Guard training. And it was hot, and you'll see from the letter, I think my dad really didn't like it. But the postmark on the letter says June 14th, 1956. There's a 3-cent stamp, and he sent this to, he says mother and dad in here, I think. But so he sent this to his mother and to the man that she remarried that I know as Papa. And I'm gonna read this to you. It's short, so bear with me. Wednesday night, dear folks. Well, I'm down here in this rat hole, and people, it's a mess. It's so hot in the daytime, you can hardly breathe. And in the afternoon, it cools off and gets about 30 below at night. How is your tobacco coming along? I hope it's doing all right. I sure do wish I was at home. I'm so sick of this place. Can't stand it. Jane is my mom. Jane and I bought us a house just before I came down here. It's out in Donaldson in Elm Hill Acres. It has 2 bedrooms and a den. It's on Bounty Drive. I sure do hope you're happy for me because I think we can be happy together. I hope you will write me a few lines and let me know how you're doing. Your loving son, Harold. So when I read this, it literally gave me cold chills. And here's why. Have you ever, a lot of times in movies today, a movie will start out and it'll be present tense, and they're showing you something in the movie in present time. Think about Saving Private Ryan. When Private Ryan, he was an elderly man, and he was at a cemetery, and he didn't really know what was going on. And then the movie says years before, or in Private Ryan's case, it goes back to World War II into the early 1940s. And then you have the bulk of the movie. And then at the end, towards the end of the movie, it comes back to present tense, where you were when the movie started, except now you know the backstory. And you're at a point now where what is happening in the present tense all of a sudden makes sense. That's exactly how I felt as I read this letter. But when my dad says, so he wrote this in June 14th of 1956. He and my mom were not married yet. They married on August the 4th of 1956. So they married, a couple of months after that. But this house that they bought in Donaldson with 2 bedrooms on Bounty Drive, that's the only house that they ever owned. They lived in that house for 59 years. One of those 2 bedrooms that he says that was in the house was my bedroom. That's the bedroom that I grew up in, and where my Dale Murphy Power Alley poster hung on the wall, even after I had moved out. And Dad saying in the letter that I think we can be happy together. And as I read this last night, and I'm sitting there with those cold chills, in my mind, I could see the movie of the life of my mom and dad and me. I could just see all of those events of our lives that, the ones that I wasn't there for, that I heard mom and dad talk about. And then once I came along, the ones that I remember, it was just like I can see this movie going fast forward. And all of those memories, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, Dad, you were right. You didn't know it back then, but now I know you guys were happy together, and we had a lot of fun together. And the fact that part of you caring about me, wanting me to have something that I could do as a hobby. And I know you, Dad, you had no idea anything was coming with YouTube, but and you didn't, and my dad didn't know that this was going to be a way for me to hang on to those memories and to keep him alive and share him with other people. Just amazing. I don't know what else to say about that. And I do know that find number 2, this letter is now one of my most prized possessions. The next thing that I ran across as I'm flipping through things, I run across this next picture. And that right there, that's just a great picture of my dad. So a little backstory about this. This was in the year 2007. I was married. I had 3 small kids at home. I had bought a new truck the year before. And, things crazy when you got three small kids within 5 years of each other. It was wild at our house. It was fun, but it was wild. And my wife and my mom got together, and they wanted me and Dad to spend some time together. So for Father's Day, they bought us 2 tickets to a Saturday and Sunday Atlanta Braves games in Atlanta. So this game is at Turner Field. We drove down I remember we drove down on Saturday. And if any of you guys have been to the old Turner Field, that's not where the Braves play now, but it's the stadium before the stadium that they play in now. And it was the Olympic Stadium where the 96 Olympics were. On one side of the stadium was the interstate. On the other side of the stadium was like a main thoroughfare, and probably half a mile up that road, you kind of went up an incline, and half a mile up that road was a hotel. And a lot of people would, that thing would be sold out on game nights. So we stayed, that's where we stayed. We stayed at that hotel. So we drive to Atlanta, we go to the hotel. Now, my dad at this point if this was in 2007, Dad was 72. He was retired. He always, was a little bit of a big guy. He had lost some weight, so he was a little thinner here, but Dad wasn't a big, huge into exercise or anything. So we're staying about a half a mile away. It was so hot that trip. Parked at the hotel, walked the half a mile downhill. We walked downhill to the game. We go to the game. Great time. We had a great time. I don't remember who they were playing. I'm guessing they probably were playing the Cubs, but I don't remember that for a fact. I do remember after the game, it's the sea of humanity walking out of the stadium, and tons of people. That road that's between Turner Field and the hotel that we're staying in, that road was closed to traffic on game days. So we're walking, and it's a pretty steep hill. And Dad was gassed. And it kind of got to the point where all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not sure Dad's going to make it the whole way. I mean, he's really working hard. And I remember we got back to the hotel. We went up to our room. Dad collapsed on the bed, and he just talked about how great of a time he had. And I said, "Are you tired?" And he said, "Yes, I'm tired as bleep." And I remember thinking for the first time, Dad's a little bit older now. I don't know you guys who maybe if your dad has gone on, or if you're in that situation now where your dad is kind of in that age bracket, and it's something that all of us will go through, but you kind of realize that Dad's not quite as young as he used to be, and I need to make the best of these times because he's not always going to be here. But we had a great time, and Dad recovered. So on Sunday, we got up, we checked out of the hotel, and we were going to the Sunday game, the Sunday Braves game. So we drove my truck down that road, down to the ballpark. And there was I don't remember which side if it was the third base or the first base side, but we're on the side of Turner Field that's opposite of the interstate. And there was a parking lot right there. So we parked in that parking lot, and literally just, it was $25 back then. It's probably $100 now, and walked straight across the road, and we were right at our seats. I think it looks like kind of dark there. I think that's from the Saturday night game. So we get there kind of early, and this story is so bad. We get there kind of early, and we go into our seats, and we sit down, and it's hot. It's Atlanta, and it's the summer, and there's no air stirring, and it's so hot. But when we walk into our seats and we sit next to each other, and there's nobody sitting in the row right behind us. There's nobody sitting in the row right in front of us. There's nobody sitting right next to my dad on the left, and there's nobody sitting next to me on the right. Well, so we're sitting there talking, and it's getting close to, the start of the game and the national anthem. And like I said earlier, my dad's kind of a big guy too. Well, this guy comes in, and he was a really big guy. I mean, like big. He comes in, and a lot of times if I'm in this environment and I come in and I see that kind of situation, I won't sit, even if my seat is right next to somebody, I'll kind of give them a couple of seats and sit over here to space out a little bit because it's hot. Well, this guy came in and he sits right down next to Dad. And, and I remember Dad just kind of, he's the guy's on Dad's left, and Dad just kind of turned to the right and just kind of looked at me like, oh my goodness, I'm going to die. It's already 30 degrees hotter now that we're crammed in here. So the national anthem is starting to happen. It's getting ready to happen. And we stand up, and Dad says, he looks at me and he says, out of the side of his mouth, when we sit back down, scoot over to your right one seat. And I'm going to scoot over to my right one seat. So we did. That's what happened, the national anthem, and we sat back down and we scooted over. And I looked at Dad, and Dad said, that guy looked at me like he's going to kill me. And Dad was embarrassed. But what are you going to do? It was so hot. It was a funny story. We drove back home after the game, and it was just, it's one of my best memories of Dad. But that picture, I mean, that's him. His Cubs hat, T-shirt. He always wore a short sleeve T-shirt and jeans. He had jeans on in this picture. It was 1,000 degrees. He didn't do shorts, but it was just a really good trip. Now, this next thing I'm going to tell you about is something else that I ran across. So if you follow Southern Collector 14, I think Tony did an episode last year that went into great detail about a trip that he and I went on back in 1989 when we drove up to Wrigley Field. For neither one of us had been there. We went to a couple of games that the Cubs played against the Mets. The whole trip was crazy. There were so many wild things that happened. I encourage you to go to his channel, watch that video. But there is one thing about that trip that I ran across last night. And Tony, I don't think you've seen this. I don't remember ever showing you this, but we got proof now. So here is the Eckerd Pharmacy, the old-timey thing that pictures would come in. Eckerd did photos. They were a pharmacy. That's my mom's handwriting, 1989 Chicago trip, Tim and Tony. So I'm going to show you real quickly a few pictures from that trip. Here is, that is old school 1989 Wrigley Field, not like the Disneyland that it looks like today. This looks totally different now, totally different. But right there, you can see it's basically just a parking lot in 1989 around Wrigley Field. So they were playing the Mets, and outside the stadium that day, there was a Rawlings truck there, and Rawlings was shooting some promotional things with Sandberg, and then also with Darryl Strawberry. So Mookie, there's Darryl Strawberry. And then I've got a better picture. That's how close we got. Darryl Strawberry is one big human being. And in 1989, he was jacked. This is the Mets warming up. And bottom right there, that's Keith Hernandez. I don't know who that is that's playing, acting like they're hitting with a glove, and who the catcher is. I can't really make out who those guys are. But we were watching. Now, this is a really cool picture. So Dwight Gooden pitched. Look at him warming up. Is that not a cool picture? And that's when the bullpens back then at Wrigley were down the left and right field line, and you could get right next to the bullpen. There's our guy, Sandberg, walking out to the field. There's Rhino. You can barely see above the WGN TV 9, Harry Carey. See his head right there. Now, this next picture, this is a guy that you all know as Southern Collector 14, but this is my best buddy, 1989. Look at that. Look at that. Probably weighed 140 pounds soaking wet. I've got shoes that weigh more than that. Here is, I thought this picture was cool. This is from the bleachers, and you can see the fence. And man, that fence back in '89, surely they've updated the basket, but that's a janky chain link fence. And then the last picture before I do the reveal of what I really want to show you, this is Wrigley from one of those 2 games that we went to see. And man, the ballpark, boy, the old ballparks, when they're full of people and that sun is bright and the sky is blue and the weather is perfect, there's nothing more beautiful. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show on Southern Collector 14's story about our Chicago trip, he went into a story about how at one of the games, Roger McDowell, who was a relief pitcher at the time for the Mets, he started getting into conversations from the field with us up in the bleachers. And at some point, he came up into the bleachers before he pitched. He came up into the bleachers during the game in street clothes, sat in the bleachers with the bleacher bums. And then it got to a point in the game where he thought he might have to go in, and he said, I got to go. I might have to go pitch. He leaves the bleachers, goes into the game and pitches. He wouldn't eat or drink anything when he was in the bleachers the first time. Goes in and pitches. I don't remember how he did, but after he finishes pitching, the game is still going on, and they brought the next guy in. He leaves the mound, goes to the dugout, comes back to the bleachers and ate a hot dog and drank a beer. And when he came back to the stands, the place went absolutely wild. Well, lo and behold, I'm flipping through this, looking at these pictures, and I ran across that one right there. And there he is in all of his glory, Roger McDowell, in the stands. Tony, I did not know that this picture existed. I don't think I've ever shown you this. We've got some of the pictures that I gave to you to use for your video came out of an album. And the pictures that I showed on my video, they weren't in the album. They were just extras that I ran across. And I can't believe, but there he is. There's Roger McDowell. So it happened, guys. That is the bleachers in Chicago in 1989. Just a crazy story. So I told you that what kind of started this whole hunt of going through all of these bins is there was one particular picture that I ran across in storage. I pulled it out of a photo album because it just looked really cool. I didn't recognize any of the people in this photo album, but all the pictures, I wish I had my tape measure in here. All of the pictures in this album they're like that size. So this is a 4x6 picture. So that's like, what's that? 3 by 4, maybe something like that. Almost 3 by 4. And was just flipping through and didn't really recognize anybody. And I thought, we're just going to throw this away because there was no names on the back of anything. And I ran across this picture that I've kept And I don't know what I'm going to do with it because I don't know any of the people in it. But, oh, that's the wrong one. It's that. Look at that picture. I have no idea where this is, but somehow what I need to do is get that album back out now that everything is here at my house and see if I can somehow figure out maybe where this picture was taken. I don't know who this is with a bat. I don't know who these folks are in the background, but look at the catcher. Look at the catching gear. And there's nothing written. Let's see. On the back, it says Velox, Velox. That's the either the type of paper or who developed it. And then there's a number. There's a number that says 1039. I don't know. But I'm going to do something with this. I don't know if I'm going to maybe blow it up and put it on the wall, but I'd like to. I'm going to do a little more research and see if I can't figure out where this is, what the connection is to the people in my family that are in that photo album that I don't know who those folks are. But anyway, I thought that was just a super cool find. So those are all of the things that I found last night as I was going through the bins, and I just thought that you guys might like to see those, and I just really wanted to kind of tie it all together and just show you those things. So thank you for indulging me. I do have one more story. It's not related to my dad, but one more thing that I think that you'll find kind of cool. So my oldest daughter married back in December of 2019. And after she and her husband married, they moved to an apartment here in town. And one of the first times that we were over at their house, we had dinner in their kitchen, and they had a picture hanging on the wall. And here, I'll show you the picture. They had this picture hanging on the wall. And it's a picture of Babe Ruth and a young girl. And this was they married December of 2019. So this was 2020. And I didn't really think a whole lot about it. I didn't really ask many questions. I'm a huge baseball fan. Even though I got out of card collecting, my love of baseball never died. Have always watched baseball, into baseball. But since I wasn't really into collecting at the time, I just kind of saw it and I thought, I'm like, is that Babe Ruth? And my son-in-law said, yeah. And I just kind of thought maybe this was, just like a phony picture or something photoshopped, and didn't really think anything else about it. Didn't really ask any questions. My son-in-law and my daughter have since moved, and they've moved to a new place in another state. And the kids are aware of I've gotten back into baseball cards, and they know that I'm into the 50s and 60s and a little bit of pre-war, but they know the era of players that I'm into, and they know Babe Ruth was roughly in that era. And not too long ago, they mentioned this picture to me again. And it just kind of started to pique my interest. And I'm like, so what is the story with that picture? So my son-in-law talked to his grandmother, and he got the story behind this picture. So first off, this picture here, they have the original photo in the family, but one of my son-in-law's uncles has the original photo. So they took the original photo and they made copies of that for all the family members. And obviously this is a story of legend in the family and something they've talked about quite a bit. But as the story goes, this picture was taken around 1940. So I think Babe died did he die in 48? And was he 53 years old in 48? So he would have been about 45 years old in this picture. So this was taken in Long Island. And Babe Ruth had a place in Long Island. The young girl in the picture, she's about 12 years old. And the young girl in the picture is my son-in-law's great-grandmother. So she's the mother of his grandmother that he called to ask, what's the deal with this picture, Grandma? So the great-grandma went to Long Island to visit her aunt. So the great-grandma's aunt also had a place in Long Island. So just so happens they were there together at the same time, and they had this picture made. That's all I know at this point. We see them somewhat often. I'm going to find more out about this, but I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is crazy. I want to know more about it. I want to know do we know how they ran into each other that day? Do we know anything about how nice was the babe? Tell me more. I also really want to see the original photograph and see if there's any writing or anything on the back of the picture. I'd love to get the exact month, day, and year. But I thought that was a very cool story. I'm not sure how many people can say that their grandmother or their great-grandmother in this case had met Babe Ruth. I know my grandmother, that was part of the story that I was talking about earlier, Bugsy's mother. She had a sister who lived in Detroit, and it was kind of a big deal in our family that my grandmother went to Detroit to visit her sister, and while she was there, went to Tiger Stadium and saw them play the Yankees and saw Babe Ruth play. I have no idea what year or any of that, but it's anyway, pretty cool picture. Just thought that was a really neat story, and I'm actually going to try to see if they'll make a copy of this for me, because I would like to put a copy of this up here in the Bugsy Collection Command Center, and it's just cool and a good conversation piece. So that's all of the stories that I have. I do have one pickup that I want to show. It's not a huge pickup. It's a card I actually bought before the National, and it's an autographed card. One thing about buying autographed cards, if you're into buying autographed cards, more power to you. I think it's awesome. Whatever it is that you collect, if you like it, it's awesome. I'm not huge into buying autographed cards myself, and I think it's probably because me and my dad spent so much time getting cards autographed ourselves that for me, this is not for you. This is not for you. This is just for me. If I didn't get the card autographed myself, it just doesn't do a whole lot for me. There's some exceptions to that. But autographed cards, and I realize they're more rare and they're harder to find. They're also more expensive. So I'll get a few. I think I showed on my national recap that I did buy the Phil Rizzuto autographed card. You know how sometimes when you're out and you see a card and it's almost like the card just speaks to you. Well, oddly, that Phil Rizzuto card did sort of was saying, buy me. So that's what I did. I bought it. And that's kind of what this next card did for me. It's a 1959 Topps Don Larson autographed card. I'm also not crazy about autographs on cards where the card has a facsimile autograph already printed on it. So I broke a lot of my own personal rules with this one, but love the vintage Yankees, love the 59 Topps, and this was just great to me, great centering. The autograph is nice. I mean, look at that Yankees hat, that wool hat that he was 9,000 degrees when he was wearing this hat. The Yankees logo bottom left. Everything about this card is so cool. Plus, it was cheap. I think I got it for $45-50. And I showed you all my pickups from the National. So I haven't made a ton of pickups. I think on my next video I did have one substantial pickup this past week that I'll share with you guys, a big card for me. And I'll talk about how I actually kind of worked around not having a whole lot of cash now to be able to pull the deal off. So anyway, that's everything for tonight. I think. I hope you've enjoyed my stories. If you have any, I'm kind of in this mode now where still coming up with these videos is not supernatural to me, as far as okay, here's what I'm going to talk about on the next video. I'm going to talk about this on the next video. I don't want it to all just be just stories. I want to show cards. So if you have any ideas or any thoughts about what you would, based on these 3 videos, what you would like for me to maybe share or show or do a video about, please drop it in the comments. I would love to get your feedback and get some help. I'm not the most creative person. But anyway, thank you for joining tonight. And until next time, want to go to a card show?